Welcome to our channel. Today we bring you a deeply emotional love story. A story about two hearts that found each other in the most unexpected way, yet fate had something completely different planned for them. This is the story of a love that was never meant to last. It was a quiet autumn evening. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun slowly disappeared behind the tall buildings of the city. The cool breeze carried the smell of rain that had fallen earlier that day. A young man named Ayaan sat alone on a wooden bench in a small park. He was the kind of person who preferred silence over noise. Life had never been easy for him, but he had learned to accept things the way they were. While he was lost in his thoughts, someone suddenly sat on the other side of the bench. It was a girl. Her name was Sara. She looked tired, almost as if the world had placed too many burdens on her shoulders. She held a small notebook in her hands and kept staring at the empty playground in front of her. Neither of them spoke at first, but sometimes silence can be the beginning of something beautiful. After a few minutes, Sara smiled softly and said, "Do you come here often?" Ayaan looked surprised but nodded. That simple conversation lasted only 5 minutes. Yet neither of them knew that moment would change their lives forever. Days passed, and the two strangers slowly became friends. Every evening they met at the same park bench. They talked about everything: dreams, childhood memories, fears, and hopes for the future. Sara loved writing poetry. Ayaan loved listening to her read those poems out loud. For the first time in his life, Ayaan felt understood. And Sara, she felt safe. Their friendship slowly turned into something deeper, something neither of them planned. But neither of them could stop. One evening, as the sun was setting, Sara handed Ayaan a folded piece of paper. Inside it was a poem. The last line read, "Sometimes love arrives quietly and suddenly becomes the most important part of your life." Ayaan looked at her and whispered, "Is this poem about me?" Sara didn't answer. She simply smiled. And that smile said everything. Promise. Weeks turned into months. Their bond grew stronger every day. They walked through crowded streets together, shared late-night conversations, and laughed about the smallest things. One night, under a sky full of stars, Ayaan made a promise. He said, "No matter what happens in life, I will always stay by your side." Sara looked at him with teary eyes and replied, "Then promise me one more thing." Ayaan nodded. "Promise me you will never forget me, even if someday we have to walk different paths." Ayaan laughed softly. To him, that idea felt impossible. How could two people who loved each other so deeply ever be separated? But life has a strange way of proving us wrong. Truth that changed everything. One evening, Sara didn't come to the park. First, Ayaan thought she might be busy. But then one day passed. Then another. And another. Days turned into a week. Ayaan felt something was wrong. Finally, he decided to visit Sara's house. But when he reached there, the door was opened by an elderly woman. Sara's mother. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying for days. When Ayaan asked about Sara, she hesitated. Then she quietly said something that shattered his world. Sara had been sick for a long time. She had a rare heart condition, and the doctors had already told her family she didn't have much time left. Ayaan felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. All those days, all those smiles, Sara had known the truth, but she never told him. The hospital room was silent. Machines beeped softly in the background. Sara looked weak, but when she saw Ayaan standing at the door, her face lit up with the same beautiful smile he had fallen in love with. Tears rolled down Ayaan's face. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Sara gently held his hand. "Because I didn't want our love to feel like a tragedy," she whispered. "I wanted our memories to be happy." Ayaan struggled to speak. "I promised I would always stay with you." Sara smiled sadly. "Some promises aren't meant to last forever." She slowly handed him her notebook. Inside it was a final poem. The last line read, "If love is real, it never truly ends, even when the people must say goodbye." That night, Sara closed her eyes for the last time, and the world suddenly felt emptier than ever before. The memory that never faded. Years passed. The park bench was still there. And every autumn evening, Ayaan returned to the same place where everything had begun. He would sit quietly, reading Sarah's poems. Sometimes the wind would gently flip the pages of her notebook, as if reminding him that love never truly disappears. It simply changes form. Some love stories last forever, and some are only meant to teach us how deeply we are capable of loving. This was the story of a love that was never meant to last, but a love that would never be forgotten.